Hello again, everybody. We're going to take up from where we left off in the first GUI app, and we're going to add some stuff to it. You might have guessed that we were going to do that because of the blue and green thing. So, so far we've written only a very few lines of Java code, and we have this app that listens to a button and puts something in the log file. So let's go back to the layout for the activity that we have, and I may flail around a little bit here. I'm going to take out that hello world component. There's a couple of ways to do it. You can do it from the outline. You can just right-click and delete it, or you can do it from the XML. I have had so many problems with the old GUI editor in Android that I think I do more stuff in XML than with the editor because I'm afraid of it. I probably shouldn't be. Okay, so now we have two things. We have the relative layout and we have the button. So if you click on the, you can see the selection change in the outline. If we click on the relative layout and look at background, I'm going to you can do whatever you want in the background. You can assign it a picture or a color, and I'm going to put a color here, and I'm going to hard code it in. Yeah, they don't like it when you do this. Sorry. Well, that's very, very blue, isn't it? So the pound sign and the RGB 6 values. Boy, that's horribly bright blue. Let's lighten it just a little bit. You have to click off of that box to get it to. So we have a blue activity. That's the main activity, and we're going to make another one called the green activity. So we'll have two activities, and we will go back and forth between them using the buttons. This is it sounds easy, but it's actually a fairly significant thing to do. So back in the Java perspective, I'm going to go over to the package and I'm going to right click and say new. Now I want an other, and under Android I want an Android activity. And I'm going to say I want an empty activity, and my activity name, I'm going to call this the green activity. And it's going to make a layout the way it did the first time, and this is not the launcher activity. The main activity is going to be the launcher activity. Okay. So this is a wizard that's suggesting what changes will be made if we add this activity. So it's going to change the manifest, which we haven't looked at yet. But this is a nice addition from the old days where it would add the activity to the manifest for us and we wouldn't forget. So here's the new stuff down here. It's going to add the green activity to the manifest, and that's a good thing. It's going to add the strings. The title for the activity is going to be green activity. This is not too interesting stuff. This is the XML file for the layout that it's going to make, and it's going to make the Java file. So let's say finish, and we will see the project get updated in that way. So we have an activity green, which is the layout for the green activity. That seems to make sense, right? So let's go into activity green XML. This is the layout for the activity. It puts hello world there all the time. We don't need that. Let's just delete that one. Trusting the GUI editor this time. And let's put the background for this one. Guess what? It's going to be green. So there's red. Okay, well, that's certainly green. Now we're going to drop a button on there. You can do it any way you want. My button is going to say go to blue, and instead of button 1, it's going to be called the ID is going to be called go to blue button, and it will ask us if we're okay with updating everything, and I'll say yes, we are. So we have a button that says go to blue. And we're going to add an on click. So the methods that hear something, that hear an event, should really start with on. That's a convention. They don't have to. So I'm saying on go to blue, and it really should be click at the end of it. That's okay, so long as we can remember what it is. So I'm going to copy it onto my clipboard. Okay, so there's our layout. Not too exciting. Let's do a save all and see if everything is working right. Okay, now let's open the green activity. And we're going to make the handler public. There's what I copied onto the clipboard. It takes a view. And we have to import the view class. Now we're going to have to put code in here that will send us from this activity back to the main activity. So let's put in the log that we hear that button being clicked. And now we're going to do something which is kind of a bad practice. Before we do that, every time you need to do an import, you can do a Control-Shift-O. And oh, that's the one I didn't expect. So there are two classes called log, and it offers to import either of them for you, and we want the one from Android. Okay, so now I'm going to call the finish method, and this ends the activity. So when someone is on the green activity and they say go back to the blue, we're just going to throw the green activity away. And you might understand that better if we go and do the intent in the main activity, which is the blue activity. So let's go over here. Sorry. So I'm going to declare an intent that I'll call go to green, and it's the same thing. We need to import the intent class. And now I could have done this in one step, I suppose. I'll make a new intent. So we're going from this, and we're going to go to so we actually specify the class file that we want to go to. The green class.class. And now we're going to start the activity. So it's still just a very few lines of Java code, but we have two activities now, and we have two buttons, and we should be able to go from one to the other. Okay, so now before we actually run this, I want to show you something that will be really helpful when things get wonky. Under the project menu, there is an option called clean. And if we clean the project we're working on, it will delete all of the files that it built, and then it will rebuild them from scratch. So it'll delete and recompile everything from scratch. This is very useful the first time your program doesn't work. If it doesn't work, clean the project, have it rebuild everything. Although it's not supposed to, sometimes Eclipse gets mixed up and it uses an old version of something. And if it uses an old version of your layout and then your button is not connected where it should be, then it's all bets are off. So let's just run it and see what happens. Let's go and look at the console to make sure that what we think is going on is going on. We'll look at the Android console. So it's waiting for the virtual device to load. I should do some work experimenting on how to make the smallest footprint virtual device so that this process won't take so long. So our virtual device is finished loading, and I'm going to look at our app. We have a button that says go to green. I wonder if the logcat has connected correctly this time. Clear the logcat once in a while so that you can tell that what you're looking at is pertinent to what you're doing instead of the old one. So if I click on go to green, it went to our other activity. I didn't see the log. There's so many error messages. Even just typing a G there. You know, I'll tell you how I cheat sometimes. I put exclamation points in my logs. So if I only want to see my own, luckily other people don't do that. So look what we have. We have an app that has two activities in it, and we can go back and forth from one to the other. And we are logging that we are hearing the clicks in the green activity and go to the green. I hear the go to green button. So it's a big step to get this far. Now I'm going to leave that running there, And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go into the DDMS. So here's the virtual device that we have running, and let's look at all the stuff that's running on it. Well, look, here's one called First GUI. That looks like ours. And we can kill that if we want to. Oh, it popped up down here. I don't know why. Let's kill that. So our virtual device is still here. We don't have to wait for it to launch again. That's why I did that. So let's go back to the Java perspective. And I want to show you how to do debugging in Android, even on the emulator. It's the same as you would expect. So we can set a breakpoint in this Java code, and we will be able to see when things are happening. So this is another debugging strategy compared to doing all of the logs. So let's set a breakpoint in each of the 4 methods that we have. And this time we're going to run with the bug. Sometimes these buttons, they do what you did the last time. And if you right-click on the name of the project, you are absolutely for sure you know what's going on. So this time we're going to right-click on Debug as an Android application. So we're debugging a Java program in the usual way, even though our program is running on an emulator. So we're going to switch to the debug perspective, and it will ask us if that's okay, and I always allow that to happen, so I'm going to remember my decision there. And the first breakpoint that we hit, you might expect, is in the onCreate of the main activity. And if we continue, it's F8, I think. F8, we're going to run to the next breakpoint. Oh, we haven't hit another breakpoint because no one has clicked on the button. Okay, so if we click on the button, we hit the breakpoint, and we can see line by line we can execute that we create the intent. Which one is step over, F5 or F6? F6 is step over. So we're going to go ahead and start that activity. And immediately we hit the breakpoint in the green activity in the onCreate method. And let's do a resume. So now the green activity is waiting for an event to happen, and there's only one event that we have, and it's to click the Go to Blue button, and we hit the breakpoint here. Okay, so the 2 activities are different. The green activity we create fresh each time, and the main activity we don't. So what does it mean if we're going to throw this activity away? How do we actually get back to the blue one? Well, there's something called a backstack. When the activities in Android are launched, the other activity that was running doesn't go away. The new activity goes on top of it. And they are stacked up. And all Android devices have something called the back button. The back button will take you to the activity that's underneath the one that's showing. Isn't that interesting? So then you have to ask, well, what happens if there's 10 activities and there's no room to make another one and put it on top? Or there's 100 activities. Eventually you're going to run out of space. You can't just keep making stuff and putting it on top of the stack. Android itself will decide when to take the activities out of RAM. And this is part of the activity life cycle. We're going to go there later. For now, just understand that when we leave this activity, we're going to execute the finish, and the finish is part of the life cycle for the activity, and it means throw that activity away. Okay, so we still seem to have not very much Java code, but we're getting there. This time we have 2 activities, we have buttons, we can hear the buttons. We can start an activity from another activity, stacking them up. Very, very good.